Kaori stepped through the fractured threshold of the abandoned station, just as the moon dipped below the horizon, casting a half-light that trembled across the cracked concrete underfoot. The overhead lamps flickered with a slow, methodical pulse, each stutter echoing through the emptiness like a distant heartbeat. Damp concrete walls yawned outward, revealing peeling advertisements that whispered of journeys never taken. The iron tracks, swallowed by shadows at both ends of the platform, glimmered faintly in her torch's beam, as if daring her onward. Her breath fogged the chill air, carrying a metallic tang that seemed to cling to her lungs. She hesitated at the ticket booth, where tattered forms of schedules offered only cancellations and silence. A faint, mournful whistle drifted from the tunnel's mouth, beckoning her deeper into the rusted maze. With each step, Kaori felt the station's hollow loneliness surfacing in her bones. The platform seemed endless, stretching into darkness with no end in sight, and the whine of the wind through broken windows sounded almost human. She ran her palm over the cold, ridged surface of a turnstile, remembering happier nights waiting for a friendly train at a bustling city terminal. But here, the machinery stood still, long abandoned by any care or repair. Somewhere in the distance, that phantom whistle called to her again, resonating like a summons. Compelled by a mixture of dread and curiosity, she approached the edge of the platform. Her only companion was the echo of her own boots on concrete, each footfall an unsettling reminder of solitude. Then, without warning, the darkness ahead shivered and split as a train appeared, its form illuminated only by the faint glow of the overhead lamps reflecting off its arched roof. No headlight cut through the gloom. The engine lurked within its own shadow, its windows empty voids that swallowed any hint of warmth. It rattled to a stop with a grinding groan that vibrated in Kaori's bones. The doors sighed open, offering a silent invitation into its hollow belly. Tentatively, she boarded, the car's interior draped in tattered seats and warped wooden panels that creaked beneath her weight. No other passengers filled these chairs, only emptiness and the lingering chill of unknown ages. As the doors clanged shut behind her, the train shuddered forward into the night. The world outside the window remained indistinguishable from the platform she had just left. Darkness pressed against the glass like a living shroud. Kaori pressed her forehead against the cool pane, hoping for a sign of motion, but even the faint hum of mechanics was absent. Time drifted in this void. Minutes became hours, and hours blurred into something worse. An unmeasured expanse with no landmarks to anchor her. The boxcar lights flickered once more, creating the illusion of motion that swayed her head and made her stomach lurch. In the dim glow, uneven rivulets traced the metal walls like cryptic runes. She gripped the seat's edge as the train rolled to a sudden halt, the doors sighing open to reveal the same station platform. Stumbling off onto the platform, Kaori felt an icy dread pool in her stomach. The posters on the walls, the turnstiles, the ticket booth all remained unchanged, as though time had frozen and revolved solely around this haunted loop. She dared not look at the tracks behind her, lest she see the phantom train creeping away into the heart of darkness. The metallic scent that had clung to her lungs now transformed into something almost sweet, like rust mingled with decay. Her pulse pounded through the quiet, a frantic melody against utter stillness. Desperate to break the cycle, she sprinted along the platform's edge, her footsteps ricocheting off cold walls. Yet every corridor she tried led her inexplicably back to this starting point. Days, or what Kaori perceived as days, slipped past in this cyclical prison. With each loop, subtle distortions crept into the landscape. Splintered benches shifted position. Graffiti morphed into names she'd never seen. And the flicker of lights grew more erratic. She discovered scratched messages on the concrete faint marks that spelled out warnings in a language of desperation. Every attempt to decipher them made her headaches pulse in time with the flickering lamps. When she glanced into shattered glass panels lining the station walls, her reflection sometimes adhered to her form, but other times contorted eyes enlarged, limbs elongated, mouth stretched into a silent scream. Her sense of self began to waver beneath the station's relentless repetition. Hunger gnawed at her with every passing moment. Though no food ever appeared in her path, she searched the booths and explored service corridors that twisted beneath the station like a labyrinth. But no matter how far she strayed, she emerged once again onto the platform. Water pooled in rusted buckets she found in hidden alcoves. But drinking it only compounded her unease as the metallic tank grew stronger. Frantic, she pressed her ear to a mangled intercom, hoping for guidance, only to hear her own voice distorted by static, crying out in panic. The echo answered her before she had finished speaking, mocking her with perfect mimicry. On her fourth loop, Kaori found a scattered clutch of abandoned suitcases at the end of the platform. Their battered frames lay open, contents spilled, yellowed photographs of faces she didn't recognize, tattered letters whose scrawled ink dissolved beneath her fingertips. And in one bag, a locket that bore her own face as a child. Her heart hammered, and she nearly dropped it before recovering the nerve to pry it open. Inside, the locket's glass was unbroken, but the image stared back at her with unfamiliar sorrow. A chill stilled her breath. She realized that whatever force she faced was not merely external, but woven into her very identity. Panic softened into steel resolve. Kaori refused to surrender to madness. She clutched the locket in her trembling hand and made a vow. She would escape this cursed junction or perish trying. Gathering every scrap of memory, every smell, every distant echo. She mapped her steps, determined to break the pattern. With the locket as her guide, she chose a carriage door at random on the phantom train's next arrival, hoping to discover a hidden path. Doors groaned open, and she slipped inside seat by seat, searching for a lever, a hatch, any anomaly that could lead to freedom. Yet each carriage proved identical. Warped seats, peeling paint, and unlit corridors. The windows remained black mirrors that refused to show anything beyond the car's hushed confines. Beneath the seats, she discovered more scratched warnings, some in her hand, as though she had written them herself, but long forgotten. The meaning twisted inside her mind, fracturing her confidence. The train jolted back into motion, and she paced the length of the car, breathing raggedly, the locket's image searing into her vision. When the doors opened once more, she forced herself off, only to stand again on that same platform, heart thundering with defiance. Darkness seeped into Kaori's dreams, though she never truly slept. When she closed her eyes, she lay on a bench beneath the flickering lights. Yet the moment she dared surrender to rest, phantom footsteps circled her in the gloom. Shadowy figures stared through the iron grating dividing lines, their faces blurred into static. Each time she shuttered her eyes, she awoke to find herself back at the ticket booth, dew forming on her hair, as though the train had rushed her through a midnight storm. The station had become her entire existence, its decay her only companion. One loop blurred into the next until Kaori could no longer trust her sense of elapsed time. She marked the days on the wall with a shard of tile, tallying away like a desperate prisoner. The count reached 30, then 50, then soared without reason. Her fingers bled at the lines she carved, crimson droplets merging with the grime. She fit one hand into her palm to staunch the pain, and stared down into the well-worn pattern of lines until she forgot the shape of her own nails. At some absolute breaking point, she realized she could not measure eternity in loops or days. This station was her new world. Suddenly, a change. As Kaori crossed a particular section of platform, she noticed two parallel tracks gleaming in the failing light. On one side lay the familiar path, on the other a narrower rail that she hadn't seen before. Her pulse fluttered at the possibility of uncharted territory. Following it, she discovered a hidden stairwell leading below the station's bones. Though her legs trembled, she descended, each footstep slipping on feathers and dust until she landed in a subterranean tunnel, faintly illuminated by an otherworldly glow. The walls here were different. Smooth concrete, etched with a pattern that pulsed beneath her fingertips. Strange symbols spiraled into darkness ahead, and an undercurrent of motion stirred the air. Kaori swallowed past the lump in her throat and advanced, drawing upon every ounce of courage she possessed. The tunnel ended abruptly at a sealed metal door, rivets corroded by time. A single lever protruded beside it, tarnished but intact. Her breath quivered as she reached for it, pausing when a whisper slid past her ear. So quiet she thought she might have imagined it. "Return," it sighed, an invitation and a threat all at once. Kaori's heart clenched. She yanked the lever downward with a shuddering groan, expecting resistance. But the door yielded, sliding aside to reveal a yawning chamber. Beyond lay an escalator ascending into absolute darkness, its steps immobile, yet beckoning upward. She hesitated at the threshold, the unknown pressing against her like a living thing. Then, with the locket's warmth in her hand, she stepped onto the first stair, determined to press onward. The escalator carried her not upward, but downward, each step she took echoing through the cavernous shaft. The air grew warmer, the hum of unseen machinery thrumming beneath the walls. Broken tiles littered the passage, and stray rivets rattled like distant laughter. Old station announcements warbled from hidden speakers, garbled pleas for passengers, promises of safe arrival, all looping endlessly. Kaori pressed her palms to her ears, but the sounds filtered through distant, mocking, unceasing. At the bottom, she emerged into a vast hall where the train's trembling whistle resounded like an aria of madness. In the center stood the phantom locomotive, its iron frame glistening with condensation. The conductor waited on its steps, tall and slender in a uniform that shimmered between black and grey, his hollow eyes reflecting every failed attempt Kaori had made. He extended a long-fingered hand, beckoning her forward with a slow, deliberate curl of his wrist. Every instinct screamed to run, but her feet remained rooted to the concrete dais. His voice was a distant melody, low and silky. "You have done well, traveler," he intoned, "but your journey is not yet complete." The smoke that should have billowed from the engine instead wreathed around him like a cloak, masking his form in shifting shades. Kaori's breath caught, and she clutched the locket, which pulsed with an urgent heat. In that single moment, she understood the bargain. Her escape demanded a price neither coin nor promise could satisfy. "One chance," the conductor whispered. "Step forward at the precise moment when the whistle breaks the dawn. Hesitate, and the loop will claim you forever." His words fell like shards of glass. Kaori's head spun. Her mind raced through every loop she had endured, each whisper of the intercom, each fleeting apparition at the tunnel's mouth. She shook her head, refusing to submit. Yet somewhere deep inside, she felt the pull of the bargain, the lure of a single moment of freedom. The train shuddered in place as the conductor eased back, leaving her alone on the platform. The whistle began its long, mournful approach. A sound stretched thin across the unknown. Kaori's pulse thrummed in her ears, matching the swell of the sound as it rolled through the cavern. She backed away, heart hammering, her boots scraping against the metal rails. Every fiber of her being resisted. But she knew that to flee the station's iron grip, she would have to risk the narrowest of margins. She ran, propelled by desperate hope, sprinting alongside the tracks as the whistle crescendoed. The conductor's silhouette flickered in the darkness behind her, barely visible through the haze. Kaori's lungs burned, legs ached, but she refused to falter. The tunnel's mouth yawned ahead, bathed in a faint grey light that hinted at dawn beyond. She lunged forward, arms outstretched, bursting through the door of the carriage as the whistle split the air. Her body slammed against unforgiving concrete, and she collapsed onto the platform, eyes stinging from the rush of cold morning air. She lay there gasping, as pale dawn light painted the station in shades of grey and rust. For a moment, relief flooded through her veins. The silence, the stillness, the sense that at last she had broken free. She pushed herself up, brushing grit from her palms, and dared to glance around. But the platform was unchanged. The lamps still flickered. The posters remained weathered in their eternal decay. Above, the sky wore an unnatural hue, a deep crimson that pulsed with each beat of her heart. The station hummed around her, alive and mocking. Kaori's breath caught in her throat as she realized that dawn here was not dawn at all, but another cruel mimicry of escape. A single whistle pierced the heavy air, the same call that had lured her time and again. She staggered to her feet, terror clawing at her mind, yet also an ember of defiance glowed within her chest. If this was another loop, then she would endure it again. And if it ended as it had so many times before, then she would return to the heart of the station, face the conductor, and demand new terms. Anything was preferable to surrendering to the static void that sought to trap her. Kaori squared her shoulders, lifted her chin, and stepped once more into the expanse of the haunted platform. As she walked, she noted subtle differences this time. One of the lamps sputtered, then died, plunging a corner of the platform into complete darkness. On another wall, a new graffiti scroll spelled out 2 words: "Find home." It was neither scratched nor printed, but painted in thick, dripping strokes of deep crimson. Yet it held no resemblance to anything she knew. Her pulse quickened at the implication that a path beyond the rails might exist. She followed her instincts toward the fallen lamp, where the station's veins seemed to pulse with expectancy. Beneath the darkness, the concrete floor sloped downward into a narrow corridor she had never noticed. Its walls were unlined with graffiti, its ceiling low enough that she had to bow her head. A soft hum emanated from within, a tune she recognized faintly from her childhood. A lullaby her mother sang when Kaori was small. Emotion welled in her chest, and she clutched the locket more tightly, Could this memory guide her towards salvation, or was it another facet of the station's cruel game? She advanced carefully, each footstep muffled by dust and debris. The hum grew louder, morphing into clear notes that resonated within her bones. The corridor turned sharply, and at its end stood an old wooden door, its paint chipped to reveal the grain beneath. The lullaby spilled through the crack at its center, beckoning her to open it. Kaori reached out, half expecting the door to vanish, but her fingers met solid wood. She pushed it open with a soft creak, ready to discover the heart of this mystery. Inside, she found a small waiting room, illuminated by a single flickering lamp suspended from the cracked ceiling. A wooden bench sat against a wall, cluttered with photographs, images of Kaori at every age. A toddler laughing in a sunlit garden, a schoolgirl with a shy grin, a young woman standing on a cliff overlooking the ocean. Tears blurred her vision as she recognized moments she had thought lost. The lullaby played on a battered gramophone in the corner, its needle tracing the record with precision. Kaori approached the photographs, fingertips trembling. Each frame radiated warmth and clarity, as though the station had stored her memories in this hidden chamber. The realization struck her that these fragments of herself were the key to breaking the endless cycle. She knelt beside the gramophone, lifting the record to reveal a message scrawled on the label. "Remember who you are." Her breath trembled with both sorrow and hope. The station had bound her through forgetfulness. Now knowledge might be her escape. Carefully, she replaced the record and closed her eyes, letting the lullaby's melody wash over her. Memories surfaced unbiddenly. The scent of jasmine in her grandmother's garden, the soft lull of ocean waves beneath a moonlit sky, her first taste of freedom and wonder. Each recollection was a lifeline, anchoring her spirit against the station's gravitational pull. She rose, feeling a clarity she had not known since entering this place. The conductor's bargain no longer terrified her. She held within her the power to confront him. Exiting the waiting room, Kaori felt the station shift in response, as if the walls themselves acknowledged her awakening. The platform glowed a little brighter, and the oppressive staleness of the air lifted. She returned to the main hall where the phantom train waited. The conductor stood on its steps, observing her with unblinking gaze. Kaori squared her shoulders, lifting the locket between them, as proof of her reclaimed identity. Her voice, steady and unwavering, cut through the silence. "I know who I am," she declared, the conductor tilting his head slightly as though curious. The whistle's familiar echo trembled in the distance, but Kaori did not flinch. She took a single step forward, and the station responded. Lamps ignited along the tracks, revealing the full extent of the platforms. The posters unfurled, transforming into vibrant scenes of sunlit fields and cityscapes. The tracks themselves shimmered, no longer buried in time's rot. The conductor's hollow gaze softened, if only imperceptibly, and he extended his hand once more. But this time, Kaori did not hesitate. She placed the locket in his palm, the weight of her memory relinquished into his dark grasp. Light flared around them, as though reality itself awakened from a nightmare. The train's whistle rose in a triumphant chord, and Kaori felt the station's walls begin to dissolve behind her. A rush of wind tore through the platform as she was lifted from the concrete, carried by something unseen. Shapes swirled around her, twisted remnants of loops and tunnels, before she burst into a final blinding flash. Her senses reeled as the world shifted beneath her feet. When her vision cleared, She found herself standing on a bustling city street at dawn, the sun cresting a horizon of glass towers and humming traffic. Kaori blinked in disbelief. The metallic tang was gone, replaced by the comforting aroma of fresh coffee from a nearby cafe. Pedestrians hurried past, unaware of the ordeal she had endured. She pressed her hand to her heart, feeling its steady rhythm, and realized with awe that she had truly escaped. Behind her, the station's entrance pulsed once in memory, its silhouette dissolving like mist at sunrise. But as she turned away to blend into the flow of morning commuters, a faint echo of that mournful whistle drifted from somewhere deep within her mind. Her steps faltered, and Kaori glanced back over her shoulder, half expecting to see the station's looming facade between the city buildings. Yet, there was only the bright street, alive with motion and possibility. She exhaled, forcing a smile to her lips. Perhaps it was merely a remnant of fear, a ghost of memory clawing at her consciousness. Kaori shook her head and continued walking, letting the rhythm of the city absorb her. Each footstep carried her farther from the station's reach, each breath a testament to her reclaimed freedom. Yet she could not fully silence the whisper that lingered beneath her bones. Days passed, and Kaori rebuilt her life with quiet determination. She kept the locket in a small jewelry box on her bedside table, a reminder of the self she nearly lost. Occasionally, when the wind shifted just so, she thought she heard the faintest echo of steel wheels on rails, or the distant click of a turnstile. Her chest tightened, but she refused to look back. Instead, she focused on the warmth of sunlight on her skin, and the laughter of friends who had long feared her disappearance. Yet on the darkest nights, when the city slept under a velvet canopy, Kaori dreamed of the station's flickering lamps and endless platforms. She dreamt of the shadowy conductor and the bargain she had struck. In those dreams, she wandered corridors that led to nowhere, her spirit restless, searching for a final key to sever the loop altogether. And always, at the end of the dream, a lone whistle echoed, soft and insistent, a promise that the station had not given up its claim so easily. Kaori awoke from these nightmares with a new resolve. She rose before dawn, donned her coat, and walked through the silent streets toward the old rail lines on the city's outskirts. She would return, not as prey, but as conqueror, to lay to rest the curse of the endless horror loop once and for all. With the first light breaking over distant steel tracks, she pressed forward into the unknown, determined to reclaim her final freedom.